In a churned field of mud and blood, the impossible unfolded. Agincourt, 1415, a legend was born. Against overwhelming odds, a desperate army stood. Their arrows, a deadly rain, defied fate itself. Henry V, King of England, faced annihilation. His weary men, outnumbered 10 to 1, stood on the brink. Before them, the might of France, a colossal force, certain of victory, ready to crush the invaders. This is the story of Agincourt, a moment etched in history, where courage met unimaginable adversity. A small English force, ravaged by disease and hunger, deep in enemy territory. Hope was fading fast. Cut off, surrounded. The path to safety was blocked. Every road led to certain crushing defeat. Their bodies weakened by dysentery, their spirits tested. The odds were stacked impossibly high against them, trapped in a foreign land, with no escape. A tiny army cornered by an empire's wrath. Survival seemed a fantasy, annihilation, an inescapable destiny. The dawn of battle loomed menacingly. The French nobles, arrogant and vastly superior in numbers, anticipated an easy, glorious victory. They prepared for a slaughter, confident their sheer weight of arms would overwhelm the enemy. But on the English side, a different resolve. A quiet, desperate determination to fight for survival. This was Agincourt, where one of history's most improbable victories would soon defy all expectations. A tiny, battered force, facing certain obliteration. How could they possibly emerge victorious from this? With 5, even 10 times fewer men, their fate seemed sealed. History tells a different tale. This is not just a battle, but a legend, a testament to courage, strategy, and sheer will. We will unravel the intricate layers of this improbable triumph, minute by bloody minute. Join a leading analysis channel as we journey back to 1415 and uncover the impossible. From the desperate march to the muddy field, we explore every critical decision, discover the tactical brilliance and sheer human grit that forged an immortal victory. This is Agincourt, 600 men, 6,000 enemies, and an impossible victory. Let the story unfold. For over a century, the 100 Years' War bled Europe dry, a relentless clash of crowns and ambition. At its heart lay a dynastic struggle, England's kings asserting their claim to France's throne. A legacy of blood and oaths, rooted in feudal complexities and contested territories like Aquitaine. Generations had known only war, its shadow stretching across kingdoms, defining a brutal era. Both nations were scarred, their landscapes bearing witness to the immense human cost of endless conflict. England itself had endured decades of instability, usurped crowns and internal strife. The Plantagenet line had weathered storms, but the call for decisive leadership grew louder. In 1413, Henry V ascended England's throne, a king forged in a crucible of war. He inherited a kingdom longing for stability and a burning ambition to forge his own legacy. Henry saw opportunity across the Channel, a chance to reunite his fractured nobility. He would not merely reclaim ancestral lands, he would demand the very crown of France. His demands were bold, encompassing territories once held by England and vast sums of gold. Across the Channel, France languished under the erratic rule of its mad king, Charles VI, a divided realm, torn between the powerful Armagnac and Burgundian factions. This internal strife left France vulnerable, a weakness Henry V was determined to exploit. Henry dispatched envoys to Paris, presenting his audacious claims for the French throne. The demands were immense: Normandy, Aquitaine, and allegiance for the crown itself. Negotiations faltered, as the French court offered minor concessions, deemed insufficient by Henry. Diplomatic exchanges turned cold, each side clinging fiercely to their irreconcilable positions. Henry refused to yield, his resolve hardening with every rebuffed overture from France. The path to peace was broken. War became the only remaining answer for England's king. Across England, preparations began. Ships were readied, armies mustered for the coming invasion. Propaganda fueled the cause, rallying a nation behind their young, ambitious warrior king. The channel became a strategic highway, promising either glory or utter destruction. The die was cast. Henry V would cross the sea to reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. France, though divided, began to stir, sensing the imminent threat on its vulnerable shores. The stage was set for another chapter in the 100 Years' War, fraught with peril. An English army, confident but vastly outnumbered, prepared for a campaign of destiny. The greatest gamble of Henry V's reign was about to unfold, against overwhelming odds. The year was 1415. The fields of France awaited their inevitable bloody reckoning. August 1415. King Henry V's invasion fleet, a monumental armada, descended upon the shores of Normandy. Thousands of English troops, knights and archers, landed unopposed, marking the ambitious start of a new war. Their objective clear: seize key French territories, reasserting ancient English claims to the crown. Soon, the English host arrived at Harfleur, a crucial port city gateway to the heartland. The siege began, a methodical, brutal affair, demanding immense resources and unyielding resolve. Heavy English artillery pounded Harfleur's formidable defenses relentlessly, day after agonizing day. Inside, the French garrison, led by the brave Sire de Gaucourt, defied every English assault. Below ground, engineers engaged in dangerous, claustrophobic mining operations, attempting to breach foundations. Repeated direct assaults proved costly and futile, repelled by a tenacious, desperate defense. Weeks turned into a grueling month. The combat was prolonged, bloody, and mercilessly slow. The relentless siege took a heavy toll on English morale, testing their endurance to its limits. Then, an unseen enemy emerged. Disease, a silent killer, began to sweep through the ranks. Dysentery, the bloody flux, spread like wildfire, devastating the English army with horrific speed. Camps became makeshift hospitals, overwhelmed by the sheer number of collapsing, feverish men. After 5 brutal weeks, Harfleur finally capitulated. The victory came at an unbearable cost. The triumph felt hollow. Thousands of Henry's finest men were already succumbing to the plague. With his army decimated, Henry faced an agonizing decision: retreat or press onward. He refused to retreat. Henry declared a march to Calais, an act of defiant English power. This was no retreat, but a bold, risky assertion of his divine right and kingly might, a direct challenge to the Dauphin and French nobility, forcing them to confront his presence. The long, arduous march north to Calais began, across hostile French territory. The army, already weakened, continued to wither from the relentless grip of dysentery. Every step was a battle against sickness and exhaustion, turning healthy men into ghosts. French cavalry, avoiding direct engagement, constantly harried Henry's flanks, further sapping strength. Food and clean water became precious commodities. The journey was a test of raw survival. River crossings were treacherous, slowed by the sick and the constant threat of ambush. Yet Henry V, stoic and unyielding, continued to lead, projecting an unbreakable will. The French army, under Constable d'Albret, shadowed them, waiting for the perfect moment. This desperate gamble, this defiant march, was leading them straight into an inevitable confrontation. Ahead, a muddy field awaited. There, England's fate and Henry's legacy would be decided. News of Henry V's audacious march across France, leaving a trail of destruction, reached the French court swiftly. The English king's insolence ignited a furious response, demanding swift, decisive action from the French. Across the kingdom, French lords began to mobilize their formidable forces, preparing for a grand pursuit. The pursuit began. A relentless tide of French steel and fury determined to catch the English invaders. Henry's destructive path, burning villages and fields, served as an unmistakable, guiding beacon. They pressed on relentlessly, driven by national pride and a thirst for vengeance against the English king. Meanwhile, Henry's army, though victorious at Harfleur, found itself increasingly isolated and vulnerable. The long march was taking its toll, supplies dwindling, the men's morale tested with every painful step. The English route to Calais was clear, but ahead lay the treacherous Somme River, a formidable natural barrier. Finding a crossing was paramount. The Somme became a desperate race against time and the pursuing French. Every potential ford was either too deep, too muddy, or already being watched by French patrols. The king understood the gravity of their situation. A blocked crossing meant certain, immediate confrontation. The French, ever closer, kept a watchful eye, anticipating the English attempt to breach the river. Thus began a tense cat-and-mouse game across the Somme, a deadly dance of feints and pursuits. English archers defended potential crossings, creating a deadly no-man's land along the riverbanks. French commanders continually shifted their forces, trying to outflank and trap the elusive English. Henry V, a master strategist, sought any advantage, desperately seeking a path to safety. Ingenuity became their weapon, as they tried to force a crossing where none seemed to exist naturally. The French, confident in their numerical superiority, closed the net, believing escape was impossible. Finally, a glimmer of hope. A narrow, undefended ford was found near Agincourt, offering a fleeting chance. Under the cloak of darkness, the English army, wary and quick, finally slipped across the Somme, a temporary reprieve. But the French were still on their heels, their pursuit unrelenting and fierce. The French were infuriated. Their quarry had escaped across the river, prolonging the tense chase. The hunt intensified. The French, enraged, redoubled their efforts, pressing on with renewed vigor. With every passing day, the French army swelled, new contingents joining the massive host from across France. Confidence surged through the French ranks. Their numbers were now truly overwhelming, crushing all doubt. The English, meanwhile, were on the brink of collapse, disease and hunger ravaging their weary ranks. Dysentery and fatigue claimed more men daily than any skirmish, weakening Henry's already small force. The nights were cold, the rations scarce, and the constant threat of the French weighed heavily on them. Henry knew his army was dwindling, their spirit tested to its absolute limits under the relentless pressure. Their path to Calais, their ultimate goal, was now dangerously close to being completely cut off. French scouts reported the English position, confirming they were now fully trapped between converging forces. The French army, now at its peak strength, stood ready, an unyielding wall between Henry and safety. The grim news arrived. Their path was blocked, completely, near a small village named Agincourt. The terrain itself offered no escape, a bottleneck perfect for a numerically superior enemy. Ahead, the overwhelming French host emerged from the landscape, forming an impassable human barrier. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Retreat was impossible, surrender unimaginable for the English. Henry V understood. This was it. His army, against impossible odds, would have to fight. The trap had closed. East of Calais, near Agincourt, an inescapable confrontation loomed large. The French, confident in their overwhelming numbers, anticipated an easy, decisive victory tomorrow. The English, battered but unbowed, faced certain doom, their backs against an inescapable wall. The stage was set. Two armies, two kings on a cold October morning awaited their destiny. The air grew heavy with anticipation. Tomorrow, a battle of epic proportions would unfold here. The impossible victory, or utter annihilation, awaited Henry V and his desperate English army. Agincourt, October 25th, 1415. Here, a rain-soaked field would become a stage for an impossible battle. The relentless autumn rain had turned the battlefield into a treacherous, sucking quagmire, a silent, deadly adversary. This was the field of fate, a bottleneck, barely 1,000 yards wide, flanked by impassable forests. Nature itself conspired to dictate the terms of engagement. The stage was set, unforgiving and grim. A biting wind howled through the defile, carrying the scent of fear and impending conflict. Destiny awaited. On one side, the English, few in number, but hardened by ordeal, their formation a testament to grim resolve. These were the longbowmen, the backbone of Henry's army, lean, hungry, and masters of their deadly craft. Ahead of their lines, a deadly palisade of sharpened stakes, a cruel welcome for any charging enemy. Their knights, dismounted and prepared to fight on foot, exemplified a desperate, unyielding determination to stand their ground. Under a tattered banner, the English stood, a small, disciplined force, facing overwhelming odds with quiet courage. King Henry V, a beacon of calm amidst the chaos, knew the true strength of his men lay within. Their longbows, silent and deadly, were their great equalizer. A rain of arrows was their promised retribution. Discipline and experience forged them into a cohesive unit. They understood their role in this desperate defense. Every man knew his place. Every movement was rehearsed. They were ready for the storm. Across the mud-soaked field, the French host gathered, a vast, glittering tapestry of medieval power. Thousands upon thousands of heavily armored men, the flower of French nobility, brimming with confidence and might. Their banners, a riot of color, proclaimed their nation's wealth and military prowess. A truly formidable sight. Mounted knights, powerful war horses, a thunderous charge seemed inevitable, poised to crush their meager foe. Arrogance radiated from their ranks. They saw not an enemy, but an insolent, numerically insignificant inconvenience. Their sheer weight of numbers, meant to be an asset, was already becoming a hindrance in the narrow field. The vast host, impressive in its scale, was unwieldy and cumbersome, struggling to maneuver in the mud. It was a scene of stark contrasts. English discipline against French multitude, a numerical advantage of 6-1. But the French leaders, driven by pride, were about to commit strategic errors that would prove catastrophic. The critical role of the terrain cannot be overstated. It was the silent, unforgiving architect of their downfall. The woods restricted their flanks, forcing their enormous army into a compressed, vulnerable column. The treacherous mud, worsened by heavy rain, sucked at their feet, slowing their advance to a crawl. Heavy horses, crucial for a charge, found no purchase. Their mobility, and therefore their impact, was neutralized. This natural bottleneck turned their numerical superiority into a deadly disadvantage. A trap was sprung. The English, light and agile, watched from their well-chosen positions. The terrain was their greatest ally. Each step for the heavily armored French was an exhausting battle, draining their strength before contact. The field itself became a weapon. It stripped away their advantages, revealing the fatal flaws in their plan. French leadership was plagued by indecision and internal squabbles. Too many voices, no clear command. Overconfidence blinded them to the obvious dangers. They dismissed the English and the terrain with disdain. Their battle plan was fundamentally flawed. It assumed open ground, not a muddy, claustrophobic death trap. They banked on overwhelming force, failing to account for how the ground would negate their cavalry's impact. Even their formidable armor became a liability, weighing them down, turning them into targets. The French ignored their own scouts' warnings, blinded by pride and the certainty of easy victory. Their strategy was a square peg in a round hole, an elegant design, but utterly unsuited for Agincourt. The deadly longbow, a weapon they consistently underestimated, was poised to exploit every French misstep. Their cavalry, meant to shatter English lines, found themselves trapped, unable to gain momentum or space. The advance itself was an ordeal. Fatigue and frustration were already setting in, eroding their fighting spirit. Their plan was already crumbling under the weight of flawed assumptions before a single arrow took flight. This vast, glittering army, designed for glory, was instead marching directly into a perfectly laid trap. The field of Agincourt, brutal and unyielding, was about to expose the fatal flaws in French arrogance. As dawn breaks over Agincourt, two armies stand poised. A titanic clash is imminent. History hangs in the balance. French banners ripple, an imposing force ready to crush the English. Their vast numbers promise swift, decisive victory. King Henry V stands resolute amidst his outnumbered men. He knows their fate rests on courage and the longbow's might. The French vanguard, a wall of steel and muscle, prepares its irresistible advance. Their momentum will be immense. Thousands of French knights and men-at-arms assemble, their confidence unwavering. They anticipate a glorious, swift triumph. Yet, Henry's army holds a secret weapon, the English and Welsh longbowmen, 80% of his strength. With devastating accuracy and range, these archers can unleash a torrent of death. Their skill is unmatched. Before them, a bristling forest of sharpened stakes, a cruel trap for any charging horse or man. Henry surveys the field, his strategic genius already at work. The French bottleneck will be their undoing. Their positions were chosen with ruthless precision. The narrow field funneled the French into a deadly gauntlet. Then the order came. A cacophony of French trumpets shattered the morning quiet, signaling the charge. The French vanguard began its advance, a slow, inexorable march, each step closer to the English lines. Thousands of heavily armored knights and men-at-arms lumbered forward. The ground itself groaned under their weight. Banners flew high, a vibrant tapestry of French nobility. Their pride drove them headlong into the trap. The terrain rapidly narrowed, forcing the vast French army into a tight, muddy bottleneck. Their numbers became a disadvantage. As the French entered the kill zone, Henry's command rang out, "Loose!" The archers responded instantly. 1,000 longbows twanged in unison, their powerful limbs releasing the heavy war arrows. The air hummed. The sky above Agincourt turned black, as a colossal, murderous cloud of arrows eclipsed the morning Sunday. With a terrifying, deafening whistle, the arrows descended, a torrent of lethal steel and wood upon the French. First, the ground erupted, then the front ranks. The initial impact was both psychological and utterly destructive. The arrows found their mark, piercing mail, splintering shields. Many knights, weighed down, stumbled and fell. Horses screamed as arrows tore through flesh. Riders were unhorsed, sinking into the treacherous deep mud. Arrows lodged in visors, pierced armor at vulnerable points. The French vanguard was immediately thrown into chaos. Panic rippled through the leading French ranks. The relentless arrow storm caused fear, disorganization, and mass confusion. Horses bucked and reared, creating lethal obstacles. Many riders were crushed beneath their own panicked steeds. The French, laden with heavy armor, now found themselves battling the treacherous, thick mud. Every step was agonizing. Bodies of men and horses sank into the mire, forming gruesome, impassable obstacles. Their advance stalled completely, yet the arrow storm continued, an unceasing, terrifying deluge. The longbowmen showed no mercy, no pause. The bottleneck became a fatal trap, transforming the French army into an immobile, struggling, tangled mass of men. Frustration turned to desperation as the French were caught between the mud, the arrows, and their own numbers. Still, the next waves of French soldiers pressed onward, pushing their trapped comrades deeper into the slaughter. They stumbled over the dead and dying, their formation utterly shattered. Discipline evaporated under the pressure. The bottleneck was now a choke point of death and confusion, a perfect, stationary target for English ingenuity. Unfazed, the English longbowmen continued their deadly work. Their arrows ceaselessly found their mark, relentless. French leadership screamed for order, but their voices were drowned. The battle was already lost for them. Seeing their enemy crippled, Henry gave the order. The English men-at-arms advanced, seizing the moment. Through their defensive stakes they went, into the struggling, suffocating mass of the French army. Their time had come. They marched into a maelstrom of disarray, exploiting every weakness. The French were caught, unable to fight. Even the longbowmen, dropping their bows, joined the fray. Armed with axes and mallets, they became close combat experts. The English capitalized on French immobility, their blows landing true. The tactical advantage was overwhelming now. The clash was brutal, desperate hand-to-hand combat. English discipline met French disarray with devastating effect. English discipline and strategic positioning utterly overwhelmed the trapped French. This was not a fair fight. A tactical masterpiece unfolded amidst the carnage. English ingenuity and courage secured an impossible, astounding victory. Agincourt, 1415. A triumph of strategy, terrain, and relentless archery. A true testament to ingenuity and courage. As the final English arrows fell, an eerie silence descended upon Agincourt. The battle's fury had ceased, but the true horror remained, stark and undeniable. The field was a testament to unimaginable human cost. For the French, it was an apocalypse. A nation's pride and manpower lay broken in the muddy fields. The flower of French chivalry, from dukes to ordinary knights, was decimated in a few bloody hours. Estimates suggest around 6,000 French succumbed, a catastrophic loss of life and leadership. Their ranks included 3 dukes, numerous counts, and over 90 barons, a generation lost. Yet, the common foot soldier also paid the ultimate price, countless thousands perishing in the mud. In stark contrast, English losses were astonishingly light, a mere few hundred men killed or wounded. This incredible disparity underscored the tactical brilliance and sheer determination of Henry's small army. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious, almost miraculously unscathed. A true triumph. For France, the psychological blow was profound. A nation reeling from humiliation and unprecedented loss. The defeat shattered French morale, eroding their confidence in their military and leadership for years. Agincourt became a symbol of national trauma, a stark reminder of their vulnerability and God's apparent displeasure. The news spread like wildfire, plunging France into a deep mourning and a period of political instability. With much of its nobility and military command decimated, France struggled to regroup and defend itself. The scale of the loss left a void in French society and leadership that would take generations to fill. For Henry V, Agincourt cemented his legendary status. A king blessed by God, a masterful commander. His prestige skyrocketed, transforming him from an ambitious monarch to a divinely favored conqueror. He had led his band of brothers to an impossible victory, demonstrating unparalleled leadership and courage. The morale of the English army soared. They had proven their worth, their skill, and their king's vision. This immense boost in confidence would fuel their campaigns for years, transforming the dynamic of the war. Agincourt forever altered the course of the 100 Years' War, giving England a decisive advantage. The impossible victory at Agincourt paved the way for Henry V's ambitions, reshaping the future of 2 nations. Agincourt, more than a battlefield victory, it became a cornerstone, shaping England's destiny for centuries to come. Henry V emerged from the mud and blood, not just as a king, but as an immortal legend. His renown soared. This victory solidified his image, the warrior king divinely favored, destined to lead England to greatness. Agincourt profoundly reinforced English claims in France, transforming a desperate gamble into a tangible advantage. The Treaty of Troyes, a direct consequence, offered Henry V the French throne, uniting 2 kingdoms. For a time, the dream of a dual monarchy seemed within reach, dramatically altering the European power balance. The diplomatic landscape of Europe shifted irrevocably. England's standing surged, while France plunged into chaos. France, already fractured by civil war, found its position severely weakened, exposed to English ambition. England's diplomatic influence grew, allowing Henry to forge alliances and secure his continental gains. Agincourt stands alongside Crécy and Poitiers as a pivotal English victory in the 100 Years' War. Like Crécy, Agincourt showcased the devastating effectiveness of the English longbow against cavalry. And much like Poitiers, it proved that a smaller, disciplined English force could humble a vast French army. These 3 battles forged a trinity of legendary English triumphs, etched forever in their national consciousness. Beyond the battlefield, Agincourt ignited a profound cultural impact, shaping English identity for centuries. Songs, poems, and chronicles immediately celebrated the underdog victory, creating a potent national myth. But it was a playwright, centuries later, who immortalized Agincourt and Henry V more than any other. William Shakespeare's Henry V transformed the king and the battle into timeless symbols of courage. The Street Crispin's Day speech became a rallying cry, a potent articulation of English fighting spirit. Shakespeare's powerful words transcended the stage, shaping how generations perceived this legendary moment. It fostered a sense of national pride, intertwining Agincourt with the very fabric of Englishness. Even today, Agincourt remains a touchstone, invoked to represent defiance, unity, and an impossible triumph. The legacy of Agincourt endures, a testament to its profound and lasting impact on English history and identity. It is a victory that continues to resonate, forever etched into the annals of military legend. Agincourt, 6 centuries later, remains more than a battle. It is a timeless testament to human spirit. This impossible victory echoes through history, forever etched in the annals of military courage and strategic genius. Faced with overwhelming numbers, the English stood, their courage a blazing fire against the encroaching darkness. Against insurmountable odds, they dared to fight. Their defiant spirit, an unyielding force that turned the tide. This was not mere luck, but brilliant strategic ingenuity, a masterful deployment exploiting every terrain advantage. King Henry V's leadership, his vision, transformed a desperate situation into a calculated, victorious gamble. The power of a unified, disciplined force. Every man, from noble to commoner, fought with shared purpose. Their cohesion and discipline shattered the formidable French might. A testament to teamwork against numerical superiority, we've explored the why behind this victory. The unwavering resolve, the desperate courage, the belief. Their spirit, ignited by purpose, propelled them forward. It was a victory forged in an impossible will, and we dissected the how, the tactical brilliance, the longbow's devastating power, the terrain's cruel embrace. Agincourt taught us that meticulous planning, combined with unflinching bravery, can overcome any opposition. This epic journey into history is brought to you by a leading analysis channel. More cinematic history awaits. Support our mission to bring history to life. Subscribe, like, comment, and share for more epic stories.